I think the part that jars me so much about the trad wife is that whole aspect of like your husband should come first, and trying to like take women back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that is just very disheartening.
Yeah.
We have fought really hard for our rights. And just because I choose to live a more traditional lifestyle of dividing labor in very traditional ways doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that I want that for all women.
I'm Keltie McGuire, and you're listening to the Kids Are Child-Free podcast. Hello and welcome to the Kids Are Child-Free podcast. Today I am speaking with Katie Palazzo, who is a mom of two, soon to be three children under the age of 4. So to say that she has her hands full is a bit of an understatement. Now, Katie is a former adventurer. I mean, she still has a very adventurous life, certainly raising 3 kids, soon to be 3. And as you'll hear about the little adventures she takes them on, how she tries to infuse the spirit into the day-to-day life of being a stay-at-home mom. But she's also done some pretty cool big adventures in the past, like hiking the entire Appalachian Trail, as well as the Pacific Crest Trail in the US. Now, Katie does live in the States, and I feel like it's important that we share different perspectives of motherhood from people living in different parts of the world. I know we've got a lot of listeners in the US. Being a stay-at-home mom is not something that all of us necessarily would have the desire to do when and if we pursue motherhood, nor the means. But I think it's really important to showcase just what this path can look like, how it can be, for those of you who may be considering this, and at the very least for a up close and personal account of full on motherhood of young kids, because Katie is in it right now. Again, having almost 3 children. We're going to hear her story of where she's at, how stay-at-home motherhood has been thus far, what led her to make this decision to stay home with her kids, and everything else she shares about this journey she's on. Thank you for being here. We had a couple of little technology hiccups, as happens sometimes, but you've made it onto the podcast. And to kick us off, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, whatever you feel like we should know for this conversation?
Sure. So I am, I'm going to start off with I am almost 35, living in the United States. I'm currently outside of Philadelphia. We just moved. And the almost 35 part is relevant because I am now, oh gosh, am I 35 or 36 weeks pregnant? But I'm experiencing my first quote unquote geriatric pregnancy because
Congratulations.
thank you. What a milestone. This baby decided to have their due date a scant 2 weeks after my 35th birthday. So I got qualified, even though I'm currently 34 sitting here, and probably might have this baby at 34. They make me jump through all the hoops, and the insurance company doesn't like that. But anywho, those are all different topics. But I used to be an adventurer. I got to hike 2 really cool long distance trails here in the United States. I got to do the Appalachian Trail in 2015 and then the Pacific Crest Trail in 2017. I just kind of fell in love with the whole vibe. And so I uh, very much know the adventure lifestyle. And I have, because of that, a lot of friends that choose to be child free. Because it's kind of hard melding the 2 worlds. I've seen it done too. I have seen people that live adventurous, really cool lives while being in the thick of parenthood, but it definitely just changed some things. So that's kind of why I think that this is a very unique topic for me to look at.
Yeah.
Too, although I had always kind of known from the beginning that I wanted to have children for better or worse, and
Mm,
my life has kind of been built around children.
yeah.
um, I tutored throughout high school and into college. My degree was in neuroscience, oddly enough, but I never had a couple of life circumstances happen right upon entering college that kind of didn't set me up for success.
Mm,
So I realized quickly that neuroscience is kind of one of those college degrees, maybe not necessarily akin to an English degree, but maybe in the fact that it doesn't really set you up for many entry
Yeah.
level jobs. People look at it and they're like, okay, cool. You either go to grad school and then do more things, or you just have a degree that looks kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really doing much with my degree. I was working lots of part-time jobs, living with my mom. And I just kind of came to this realization of like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I'm wasting my 20s. We're supposed to be doing something with these years. So I just decided to save up money, quit everything, and do something completely out of my wheelhouse. I had never camped before, and I just decided I'm going to do this 6 month long journey.
It's
And it changed
amazing.
me, and it was beautiful. And, but it's not real life,
Yeah.
unfortunately, not sustainable. So, yeah, but here I am living a completely different life. I have two kids currently. One today is actually 3.5, and the other one is 15 months. A boy and a girl, and we have no idea what we're expecting next. So yeah, that's my lengthy about me.
Wow. No, that's perfect. And I mean, very interesting life that has led you to this point. And I think the adventure piece is interesting because I know, and that's, I mean, I'm glad you shared it 6 months because for people who are outside the US and or who aren't hikers and maybe familiar with these hikes, like these are serious endeavors where you go like length and or width of much of the country. Do you not like?
So I did the East Coast. You
Yeah.
hike from almost the bottom. The bottom is Florida, but you start in the top of Georgia and
Okay.
go up to about the middle of Maine. So you get almost all of the East Coast on the Appalachian Trail.
Wow.
And then the Pacific Crest Trail is literally from tip to tail. You used to be able to enter into Canada, but now, because of political reasons and the
Yeah.
United States being kind of a jerk to everybody, Canada's like, no, that's no longer cool. That you can't
Yeah.
just enter into our country on foot
Oh,
any
that's too
longer.
bad. Okay.
Yeah.
All
So,
right.
so now it's from border to border. So you
Yeah.
start at the Mexican border in California. You walk all through California, seeing just the most iconic.
Mm,
When you think about hiking in America, you either think about California or Colorado.
yeah.
There's really not much in between when people have that image.
Yeah.
But you get to go through Yosemite and John Muir Wilderness and all those absolutely stunning locations. And then you get to go through like the coolness that is Oregon. Although unfortunately, I was personally like fire closed out of it. I hiked during a
Mm.
year that was called Fire and Ice.
Oh,
We had
wow.
Mega highest snowpack years in this years. And then on the tail end, we got lots and lots and lots of fires. So there was lots of detours and
Hmm.
things about that. And then you end up going through Washington, and into I got to go into Canada. That was another one that was fire closed. I couldn't go the normal PCT way, which now, once again, nobody can do. But we did something called the Ross Lake alternate, which was really cool. So we all made it work. It's fun,
Wow.
and that was another component too. I went by myself, but you create like a family.
Mm.
And so when I went over to the PCT day like 3, I saw somebody I knew from the AT, and we just hiked the whole thing. Her and she's actually one of another child free by choice. Her and her partner, we hiked together. So I was their third wheel. I was
Yeah.
their child.
Yeah, I love it. That's important. We have friends like that as well, where we like to joke, like, "Oh, you're our kid." No, not in like an infantilizing, demeaning way, but yeah.
Oh, just a tiny
Oh,
bit, but yeah, I know. I
okay.
was their little puppy.
I love it. I mean, those are pretty hardcore endeavors. And if it sounds familiar, if any of you are familiar with it or read Cheryl Strayed's book Wild or watched the film, that's the PCT, is it not?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. She, I believe, hiked about 1,000 miles of it. But yeah, she was. I read her book, and I actually, more importantly, listened to her podcast a
Mm,
whole lot on the AT. She does a Dear Sugar.
so good.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know it.
So
Yeah.
that was that was a big. I haven't listened to that in forever, but
Yeah.
circa 2015, that was what was in my earbuds.
Totally. Okay. And now you've mentioned you have two children, a third on the
hmm
way, and something you didn't share is that you're a stay-at-home mom, correct?
Yes. Oh, yeah. That's a big component. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I currently, in the eyes of the US government, do nothing.
Yeah, not working, right?
Yes,
Okay.
no, no. I get
Uh,
all those lovely spam text messages about like, oh, we found your resume. I'm like, oh, cool. My resume. I haven't
yeah.
had one of those in forever,
Yeah.
so sure you found it. But yeah, the government really doesn't like you not working per se. So they love to like you get on these. I don't even know how you get on these lists. You
Hmm.
get on a bunch of lists and you get a bunch of spam
Yeah.
things. We've got a lovely job lead for you. Are you interested?
Yeah. It's obviously a huge contradiction, right? Because there's so much pressure for women to have kids and many kids, and
Yeah.
yet so little support to do so. So, okay, I'm sure we'll get into some of those things. Current political landscape of the US aside, which of course like does bear into this decision. Um, you mentioned you always knew you wanted to have kids. And so I'm guessing, did
Mhm.
you meet your now husband after you finished the hikes? And or like what were you doing at the time? Were you working professionally? What did life look like then?
So after I got back from the PCT in 2017, I
Mhm.
had very little money to my name. My mom, I just have a mom. My father
Mhm.
passed when I was in high school.
Mhm.
Turned out to be a very big blessing. He was a sick man. He was a raging alcoholic, kind man, but raging
Yeah.
alcoholic and drug addict. So I grew up with a lot of insecurity around that. My brother, I have one brother, he's 9 years older than me. Um, but he grew up in a very different era of life and childhood than I
Okay.
did. So I was kind of like an only child, and my mom was my rock, my everything. So I think that's kind of what influenced me as a young child to like know that I wanted children
Yeah.
because my mom was such an important figure in my life and literally the person that held everything together and made things work and made sure that we had everything. So she was really important and a best friend of mine on the AT. She visited me so many different times, and it
Really?
was always
Oh,
so fun. Yeah, when I was in the South, she visited in like the Tennessee Smoky Mountain National Park area, and so we got to go to Dollywood.
I don't even know what that is. I know Bollywood.
Dolly Parton has her own
Oh, Dolly.
amusement park.
Oh, this. Okay, I have heard of this. Dollywood, an iconic child-free woman, by
Yeah.
the way.
Yes. she she also has an amazing program for children
I know.
called the Imagination Library, and they will send you depending on your zip code. Unfortunately, I no longer qualify for the program, but at one point I did, and it was wonderful. There were so
Mm,
many amazing books that she'll send to you for free, and so if you're in the U.S. Look it up,
very
see if you
cool.
can get it, see if you can send it to even if you choose to be child free. I'm sure you have children in your life that are
Yeah,
important to you. Send it to one of them. It's amazing.
such a good
Wonderful
resource.
woman. Yeah. But my mom is just, she fell in love with like my adventure. And her brother um, lived in New Hampshire at the time. So when I got to the Vermont, New Hampshire aspect of it, she was like, this is me. This is where I want to be. I she was an early adopter of work from home. She had a medical reason that facilitated that for her. So she did not tell her company, picked up her stuff, moved to Vermont, and started working remotely from Vermont. And then just let her company know eventually, like, hey, I'm a good employee. You can still choose to have me. But this is where I am. This is what I did. And it worked out for her. So she lived in Vermont. So she made that move while I was on the PCT.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got done, it was like a little mini adventure for me because I was no longer in my suburban Philadelphia household. I got to
Yeah.
go up to Vermont and figure out life up there, which challenging.
Mm,
Vermont has very little, I don't want to say like very little infrastructure, but a lot of the jobs that I would qualify for were like touristy jobs. So I worked at a spa as a hostess, and I worked at a rock climbing gym. I did little things again, but I wasn't really living much of a life. And then I had nannied for a family back in Philadelphia, and they called me up and they said, "Hey, we're pregnant with our second child. Do you want to come back down here and work for us?" And they are just the most wonderful family. So I was like, heck yes, I do. So I moved back down here. I moved in with a college friend and, just started. I had this idea that I was always really bad at like dating, meeting people. But I had this idea that if I joined volunteer organizations, I would find somebody who had a like heart to me.
mm,
And in the most bizarre way, it actually worked for me, but I did not find a hiker. I found someone who claims to be a hiker, but was a wonderful human being in general. And we hit it off. And I just liked how down to earth he was, but he was also very confident and made the moves. Like, so he asked me out on a date. He had the date planned. And for me, I'm decisive, but I'm also very indecisive. So those were like uh, really great characteristics for me. I was like,
mm-hmm.
okay, cool. When I can't make a decision, you can take charge and do the kind of legwork for me. And that's worked really well throughout our relationship. We've kind of like just naturally filled each other's holes,
Yeah.
and that's, I think, what makes a good partnership is finding somebody who can do the things that you are capable of doing,
Yeah.
but don't really want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like a good compliment.
Yeah.
And
So,
so were kids in the conversation then from the beginning if this is something you were clear on? And then, of
yeah.
course, the next question is like, how did you know you were ready and the timing was right for this? Because this is a big question mark for people who decide to have kids or are thinking about maybe having kids.
So we both knew that we wanted children. And that was a big conversation. I'm one of those open book, I tell you too much going in because I'm like, here, I'm a lot. Do you want to accept me or do you not? So I put it all out there about like how I'm a nanny, means a whole lot to me. I want to have kids. I'm interested to have kids. When we met, I think I was either 28 or 29.
Mm-hmm.
So I was getting to that age where you have to really start being like intentional
Yeah.
about what you want, or you kind of choose not to be intentional and maybe not get your needs met.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, listen, I know what I want. I want this. And I grew up in a family of three. He's the oldest, and his mom stayed at home. And he always really valued that and thought that that was important. So he
Mm-hmm.
kind of really liked that about me and really also liked the fact that I would take charge of that aspect. And that I could own it. And he would basically, especially in the younger years, be able to kind of not necessarily autopilot, but be able to still do his things and do what he's good at
Mm-hmm.
while I went about, the day to day of
Yeah.
raising a family.
Which is a
So
lot.
that, yeah, so that was a big part of our conversation. And so when we were engaged and getting close to our wedding date, I have a natural thing about like, I don't really like taking medicine of any sort. So I was just like, hey, listen, I want to get off birth control. I know that the process of getting pregnant, which seems like it should be automatic for most people, is not.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of those things where, you never really know what is in your future, if it's going to be hard. I've had some friends where it is a very hard road. So he was like, yeah, I swore it, go off it, no big deal. And it was one of those things where we thought it was going to be something that was going to be hard for us. And in the blink of an eye, all of a sudden I was staring down at a pregnancy test that said, yeah, you're pregnant. And I was like, oh God, we're not even married yet. And I'm pregnant. So I was approximately 3 months pregnant with my son at our wedding. So we kind of jumped right into it because we
Yeah.
dated for a year. We were engaged for a year. Then we had Teddy. So, in terms of like how our relationship has changed, I honestly don't even really know because we've
Mm.
just grown together through
Yeah.
those stages. And it was all really quick. We just celebrated our fourth wedding anniversary, and we're soon going to have 3 kids. So we definitely we hit that timeline.
Yeah. No
We did it.
kidding. Jumped right in.
Hmm.
Okay, so I'm interested. I mean, it sounds like your husband felt like, would you say he was like very unwavering and like, I want you to be a stay-at-home mom, or that was something you expressed first? Like, was there a negotiation there? Did you have any reluctance or fear about like, do I want to do this full time, or did you know that you always wanted to?
I think because I was a nanny, it was a
Hmm.
very natural transition for me,
Yeah.
and I just because of the family that I worked for, they were wonderful. They like unofficially gave me maternity leave,
Mm.
and they wanted me to work with Teddy. I brought him. I think I was, oof, goodness, a little less than 2 months postpartum, and I started going back to full
Okay.
time work with them. And I stayed, might have been halftime. I can't remember because their daughter, when I told them that I was pregnant, they already had their son in preschool. So they looked into getting their daughter at least a couple of days and like I think
Hmm.
halftime at first. And we gently kind of like got me more freedom to do doctor's appointment. Anybody that's been pregnant, I'm sure knows that there's a litany of just different doctor's appointments and things that you have to do
Yeah.
that sometimes get in the way of working. um, so they were very mindful of that, and they're just wonderful people. So they kept me at the same salary, which was phenomenal. But started weaning away some of my working time,
Hmm.
and then about when my son was 1.5. Was he 1.5? I think so. Reese was almost school age and it was going to be summertime. So I knew I was going to be full time again. And I was just like, I, I can't, I
Yeah.
can't. He won't sleep, at their house. And, so I would do things like because of being a nanny, I knew all of the
Mhm.
cool parks and libraries, and I'd cherry pick ones that would give me a good drive that Teddy could sleep in the car and not be, get his fundamental needs met. And
Yeah.
Reese and I would chat or listen to like an audio book or something like that. And it worked out for everybody. And then she got to go somewhere really cool and we got to
Hmm.
spend all that time together. But yeah, I knew full time wasn't going to be
Yeah.
a great option. So I let them know pretty soon. I think it was like around Christmas time. And I said to them, like, hey, come summer, I think I'm out. um,
Yeah.
but it worked out timing wise perfectly because she, to this day, oh man, we're close. And so she sees me, it's hard to separate. So I think we both needed that like period of separation so
Hmm.
that when she entered into kindergarten, it wasn't like, where's Miss Katie? Like, why isn't she not here every day? You know, so she had that time to have some really fun time without me.
Yeah.
So that structure of school, she could just focus on that and focus on being with her family. And
Mm-hmm.
I was already a little bit more removed from the picture. So I think it was helpful for everyone.
Okay.
But that's when I transitioned into being full time stay at home mom. And so I guess I've only been doing that now for 2 years, maybe.
Okay.
But it seems like forever.
Yeah, I would imagine. You're busy.
Yeah, it seems like forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it all kind of came about naturally, and my husband just supported me through all of these
Mm,
processes. And I'm not gonna lie, it was really great when we both were bringing in money, and I
yeah.
felt I like that. I like that I got to enter into having children and being a newlywed and all of that with still having my own independent money, because that's a big thing to get used to, is to
Yeah.
just be not making your own money and not being able to be like, I can just buy whatever the heck I want because I
Yeah.
make it and no one can tell me that like that's a stupid purchase.
Yeah. That's such a good point. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of like mental gymnastics, and I'm really lucky because my husband does not want me to feel those things. So he doesn't like, it's not like it's a external pressure. It's all internal of me
Yeah.
being like, oh God, am I making a smart decision for my sole income family? um, but there's a lot of times where I'd like just love nothing more than to be like, I'm going to treat myself to a fancy coffee. Like I really want one. I think I
Yeah.
deserve it. And then there's that like little nagging part of me that's like, but that's so dumb to spend the money on it. You have
Mm.
something at home that you can make that will satisfy that itch and be a whole lot more economical. Like, why are you doing? And now, if I go to Starbucks, I know that I have to buy a cake pop for my child too.
It's twice as expensive, 3 times probably.
So now,
Yeah.
yeah, now I'm really in it. If I want a
Yeah.
treat, now everybody gets treats.
Yeah. All right. If you have reached a point on your kids or child free journey where you are now pretty sure that child free is a path for you, you feel like you've either made or about to make that decision, and yet you have these niggling doubts that keep coming in your way. You think, what if I regret it? Am I making a terrible mistake? When people ask you, are you planning to have kids? You still answer like, I'm not really sure. I don't know. I know what it's like to be doubtful about claiming this child-free path. And so if you want to go from feeling shaky to feeling rock solid in your child-free decision, you're going to want to check out the fall edition of my Confidently Child-Free Coaching Intensive that starts on October 13th. This will find you in a group of like-minded women who get what it's like to be pretty sure that child-free is a path for you, but not as confident as all those child-free content creators you see on your Instagram feed. If you want to work through those residual doubts that you have about your decision and start to fully claim and plan for a joyful child-free life, this is the program for you. I'm going to show you how to get confident in your decision because I have been in the same shoes as you. I know what it's like to be pretty sure, but not totally sure that this is that right choice for you. And we're going to help you take things further so you can fully embody this child-free decision if that applies to you. Of course, if you're on the fence, we've got lots of other coaching offerings. This is just for those of you who are pretty sure that that's the way you're leaning. All right, I will share the details in the show notes of today's episode. You can also find info at kidsorchildfree.com under the Work With Me tab. And if you have any questions, of course, drop me a DM, but otherwise you should find all of the info there for the upcoming cohort of my Confidently Child-Free Coaching Intensive. It's interesting you bring that up. And the closest I can relate is having been self-employed for several years. I mean, I've relied and been privileged to have the support of my husband for a large part of that time. And I similarly, mental gymnastics is a good way of putting it, because I've had to similarly sort of contend with, first of all, there's different ways in which we bring value to a partnership and a family. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times we perceive that only in terms of who's bringing home the bacon, so to speak, right? Do we have
Yeah.
kids? Do we have kids waking up? Are they playing on
A
the
little
lawn?
bit.
A little bit.
They're spurring a little bit. Yeah.
Sidebar for listeners, Katie is doing this at like 6:30 in the morning. We started a while ago, so we'll see how we manage and how this conversation
Yeah.
unfolds. But I'm glad that you said with two of them, they're able to sort of entertain themselves in early morning.
For a little bit, yeah. And luckily I have some breakfast already in the refrigerator. They
Oh,
might choose to hate it this morning, but
well, let's see.
at least I have something to offer them
Let me know if
when
you need to
they're,
hit pause.
yeah, will do. But let's
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, no, I can relate to this idea of feeling like, I mean, of course, what you're doing is like incredibly important work to be supporting and raising your children and supporting the home. And I want to, so you mentioned sole income family. I think there's an assumption. Let's admit, first of all, of course, there needs to be a certain amount of privilege to be a stay-at-home parent, typically because
Oh
you
yeah.
are surviving on a sole income. And at the same time, there's a somewhat cost savings there because you're not paying for things like the daycare you would if you were working outside the home. And
It's
I,
super expensive.
yeah. And so I think when people consider the stay-at-home mom path, I usually hear one of two things. Either A, that's just not possible, even if I wanted to. Like, how can one manage on a single income in a place like the States? And the second piece is, I don't necessarily want to. I want to have something outside
Yeah,
the home, which I think is totally valid.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you speak to those things and sort of how you've been
Hmm.
able to consider and think about this and like practically manage?
Yeah. I think the first one that I'm going to tackle is the I don't want to aspect, which I think is not talked about enough, because being a stay-at-home parent is not for everyone. Kids are intense and they take a lot of patience. And I've luckily had, early on in my career, one of the things that I did was I worked with kids with special needs, particularly autism.
Okay.
And I learned a whole heck of a lot from that early exposure.
Hmm.
But one of the things that I learned is, the spectrum is a beautiful way of putting that particular. I don't want to use the word disorder. That's what's commonly used,
Hmm.
but that mental way of thinking, because it's in all of us. Like
Hmm.
every single person that is on this world has some degree or could see themselves in a child that has severe sensory processing issues.
Hmm.
So that was something that was like really cool for me to see, is that it is a part of all of us. And to this day, like my son hates hand dryers in a bathroom. For anyone that's a parent, that can be a very common thing. Like that auditory aspect is
Yeah.
overwhelming. But I realized that in myself too. Like I'll go to a party or something like that and I'll just feel automatically more stressed.
Yeah.
And it was such a cool thing to see that we really do need to be aware of our environment and how we speak and how we do things. Another really important aspect that I learned from that job was that not much learning can happen if you're in that kind of a stressed environment. So, like when we try to quote unquote discipline, especially our young children, we try to do it like right then, right after they've done something. And they're not really quite ready to listen to that. So, like, I think that it takes a lot of patience to be a stay-at-home parent, and it's completely right and within everyone's uh it should be we are privileged. We can make these decisions.
Yeah.
It should be okay to say like that is not in my wheelhouse. I do not
Yeah.
have that type of patience. I do not have that type of ability to pause my own needs to be like, how can I help you?
Yeah.
How can I put everything that I am thinking, feeling, and I'm frustrated because you just broke something or you just did something that really made me upset? Like, how can
Hmm.
I put all of those emotions aside to focus on what you need and why you did this, And that's hard. That's a hard thing to do. And it's not something that we're taught to think about or taught to do.
Yeah.
So it really, all that early exposure has really, really helped me in my parenting journey and being prepared for this and being prepared to like focus on the good. And that's an aspect too that like I think that my husband doesn't always quite get. Like last night, things weren't going his way. He had a really tough weekend. And just in general, he lives and dies by football sometimes. So football Sunday was not going his way. And it was his turn. He always does, he's got specific things that he does in our household. One of them is bath time. So
Mhm.
he was doing bath time. And like I could just tell that every single thing that my son normally struggles with on a day-to-day basis was just eating at him in particular. And so I kind of wanted to come in and save him from that because I was like, listen, you're not being yourself right now. And I
Yeah.
don't know if you realize that the words that you are choosing and how you are choosing to interact with our kids, although it's completely understandable from an adult
Hmm.
perspective, is not, it's not jiving with them. And it's
Yeah.
just going to make things worse. And the last thing that we want on a Sunday night is for everybody to be upset and dysregulated. And so, like, why don't you just go take care of your own needs? I got this. Like, I can do bath time. It's fine. It's not our normal thing, but
Hmm.
it will be completely okay. So I think it's very important that some people are just like, no, not for me. I want my time. I want my space. I set up a career and I want to continue that career.
Yeah.
And I think that it's also really important for people to be mindful of that it is hard for women to step away from their career and re-enter at the same level
Yeah.
in which they enjoyed previous to having children. So it's not always that automatic, well, your job will wait for you. It might not. Um, so I get it. I understand. I was a nanny, you
You're
know.
still doing your job. You're just doing it for your own children in a way. I mean, it obviously is
Exactly.
much more encompassing, and maybe you can
Yeah.
speak to the difference, but
Oh yeah. It's
yeah.
it's definitely very different. But I like my job was going to end at a certain point anyway,
Hmm.
and I would have had to have found a new family. And there's multiple reasons that I don't think that I'll ever go back to nannying. I think that it's
Okay.
a very intensive relationship and very hard to pull off if you yourself have, especially small children.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things that, so that's the first point. And then financially, it's difficult, especially with how much mortgages are in the States right now, or even renting, and then at some point, you do need to think about like educational. So the whole reason we moved was to get into a school district, but
Hmm.
in order to look for a school district, um, around here, that's going to add an extra 100,000 plus to any house that you're looking for. So already, if you want we have three kids. Idealistically, we'd be living in like a 4+ bedroom house.
Yeah.
That did not happen.
No.
But we got the school district we wanted. And so we had to sacrifice on a lot of other things to get, we found somehow magically a single family house that didn't
Hmm.
need too much work, but we found something that we wanted in a school district. And we feel very lucky for that. But yeah, there's a lot of financial concerns about making things work, and I'm really lucky because that is not one of my strong suits. I quit everything to go through hike. I did not have a legitimate retirement plan. I was working little minimal jobs that did not provide me with a 401k
Yeah.
option or any kind of thing like that. So when I met my husband and he was like, listen, I will take care of the financial side if you take care of the household side. I was like,
Hmm.
boom, done. I love that. Thank you for making sure that I am taken care of. Um, I can do all of that. I can do the day to day.
Hmm.
And so it works for us. And that kind of, uh, I know I'm jumping ahead here, but there's this whole, trad wife
Yeah,
mentality
let's
that's
talk about
getting
that.
popular now. And there's a lot that like just kind of makes me shrivel up and get very uncomfortable about that whole mentality, because I think the most important part of why my lifestyle works is because my husband completely values what I do.
Yeah.
And he looks at me as an equal and says, like, hey, listen, you are doing something that I could not do, that I think is very hard. And I very value the fact that you can bring these skills. And that being said, also, he works from home and he helps us out of the door every day. Sometimes, especially if I'm struggling, he'll be like, I'll make you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich so that you
Score.
can you can get out of the door easier, because I have to pack mountains of food for these
Hmm.
tiny humans, just to be able to make it a couple of hours outside of our house. Um, so it's just, there are little aspects that he just jumps in and unconsciously or consciously, I'm not sure on his aspect, but he helps out. On the weekends, we both very much, we were the type of couple that before children slept until some days like 10 or 11.
Hmm.
um, so we very much value sleeping in, and he knows that he wakes up early with the kids on the weekend. Does that mean that I'm completely free of waking at all? No. If the kids are up in the middle of the night, that's still me.
Hmm.
I still have the monitor until he is officially up for the morning. I still hit him when they wake up and say, yo, you got to get your butt up now. So there's still like a lot of parts of that mental load that I still take on, but that's like one of those balance coupley things,
Yeah.
But I think the part that jars me so much about the trad wife is that whole aspect of like your husband should come first, and trying to like take women back to that.
Hmm.
Um, and that is just very disheartening.
Yeah.
We have fought really hard for our rights. And just because I choose to live a more traditional lifestyle of dividing labor in very traditional ways doesn't
Hmm.
mean that I want that for all women.
Yeah.
Nor do I think that that's, eh, the only way of living, or anything like that. So it's those aspects that I particularly make me like cringe.
Yeah.
If you want to go make a sourdough starter, please go do that. But yeah,
Yeah.
and it's really hard these days too with the internet, and it can be such a resource, but it can also be such a voice in your ear of telling you that there's only one way of doing things, and
Yeah.
that one way is right. It's not.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm interested, what would you say are some of the sort of like, I don't know, myths or stereotypes that you've come under as a stay-at-home mom, i.e., like, do people make certain assumptions about you and the kind of person you are because you stay home with your kids? Or is it commonplace amongst like the circles you're in and the place you live?
I guess for better or worse, I think that able to not really think too much of what others think of me, hopefully.
Good
But
for you. Yeah.
um, I, I always get self-conscious about trying to like maybe validate what I do,
Mhm.
and also prove that I have some kind of like baseline intelligence. I love mentioning the fact that I A, went to college and B, went to college for a science-based thing, and use that I try to use that in my day-to-day life. Like
Yeah.
every aspect of childcare, I really do try to take back to, how is their little brain functioning and developing, and how can I best suit their needs and help them grow and develop within that framework. So there's a lot of me that I think I bring to it that's like, I'm not good enough. Like, I don't do enough. And I think that's also one of those stereotypes of a stay at home mom, and why I, once again, appreciate my husband so much, because I think it's very easy for people to be like, well, what do you do all day? And there are people that like manage to have a job and bring in income and still make sure that there's dinner on the table and that the children are fed and that the children, do these things. And I'm like, yes, but you also have to realize that sometimes you get pockets of time where your children are being watched and you
Mm-hmm.
do those things. Like everything I do with a little person literally hanging off of me, or I have to be able to stop whatever I'm doing in the moment and be completely there for somebody else. Like, I'm right now in the most intense, I'd say, section of parenting where it's completely easiest to lose yourself and completely live for other people.
Yeah.
Um, and I live that way every day of my life, every moment of my life. There is my doctor. I have, I'm sure it's somewhere in her chart that I have 3 children. I'm about ready to have 3 children.
Yeah.
I mentioned, that I have way more back pain during this pregnancy. And she's like, you really have to just find some time to schedule yourself a massage. And
Did you laugh like
uh,
that when she suggested it? You're like,
I
okay,
did.
childcare, would you
I
like to do
did.
it?
uh, and this is me speaking from a very privileged
Yeah.
perspective too, because I have a wonderful support network. My mother-in-law lives 10 minutes away
Mm-hmm.
and is retired from her job now, was a stay-at-home mom, but also has her master's degree and, was a teacher forever. My kids adore her, love spending time with her. Sometimes I'm pretty sure they like her a lot more than me, which they should,
Grandma.
because she gets to be Captain Fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anywho, uh, she now takes the children for all my doctor. I used to bring the children to my doctor's appointments, and then I started having like blood pressure issues. I wonder why. And she was like, "No, we're not going to do that this pregnancy. I am not working. Like, you are not taking the children to another appointment. That's
Mm.
just you're done." And she's so amazing for that decision. And my blood pressure has been miraculously in check for, for all of these. So I don't know. It's one of those things where like, yeah, I get to go to a doctor's appointment without my kids, but do I feel like I can schedule myself a massage? No, not really. I don't. I have like a couple more weeks of this. I one time did try to schedule a massage and it was I have a gift card for a specific like chain. I think
Yeah.
it's called like Massage Envy. I tried to get like a last minute appointment. Turns out they don't like do those.
Okay.
So to like work within their framework, work within the framework of my family too, and provide coverage for my children, it's not as easy as it seems to take even just like an hour away
Yeah.
from your life. So I think that that's a stereotype of just, like, what do you do all day? I put out fires.
Yeah.
I manage little emotions. I deal with lots of tears, lots of snot, lots of peanut butter. Um, yeah, lots of things. But yeah, so I don't know. I might not be the best person to speak to about stereotypes, but I think those are a couple.
Yeah, no, I think you've spoken to them beautifully. And I hope that the narrative has shifted or is shifting as far as like the fact that I know in the past people would say things like, so my mom was a stay-at-home mom, like, do you work? Do you have a job? And she'd be like, well, I don't work outside of the home, but like she obviously is working every day and raising us kids. And similarly, my dad put a lot of like emphasis on the fact that like he could not be doing the work that he was doing and that the home would not run as it did if it weren't for the work that she was doing. And I still think he could have probably stepped up and supported more. I feel like sometimes that appreciation, I don't want to say it can be a cover for actually like getting in there and supporting and not the
Yeah.
implication in your case, but it's like, yeah, you're grateful. And also it's a lot. But I would hope that there's like a receptivity or openness to those who choose to and become mothers and parents, being able to, not everyone is able to, but in theory, having the choice of staying at home or doing home part-time or working or and all those variations, and that there's respect across the board. I certainly know there is amongst our listeners that like what you do is super important and every bit as valid as those who decide to or able to or want to work outside of the home in addition to raising children. So,
and I value the lifestyle that I'm able to, because I stay home, afford for my children. I think that I think there's a lot of things going on in our world right now. A lot that we can't avoid,
yeah.
like technology is ever present, and my baby will pick up a phone and pretend to scroll. Like it's always present,
Yeah.
no matter how well you try to shelter your children from it, or if you think you should shelter your children, or you think you should not shelter your children. But I get to make all of those decisions. And for somebody who's a little bit of a control freak, that is so comforting. I get
Mhm.
to, for the first burgeoning years of my child's life, I get to decide, how active they can be.
Yeah.
I don't have them. I think that it's kind of a little bit, and not all childcare programs are like this. Let me just state that there are some wonderful, wonderful programs. Um, they oftentimes cost a whole lot of money, but there are also some programs that, your child sits for a lot longer than I believe that children should,
Yeah.
or there's just different rules and aspects that they have to do because they are taking care of many, many children.
Yeah.
And I don't have to. And there's just different also timelines and stuff like that. Like if we do have some scheduled things, like we go
Hmm.
to story times, we go to music classes, we do things that start at specific times that we need to be out of the house, and those are some rushed moments. But for the most part, if my kid needs me to sit with him as he does a task that he knows how to do,
Hmm.
I can afford him that. I can afford him that luxury of sitting with him and waiting for him to be silly with his sock and put it on both feet and say, "Oh, look at this. Look at this." And I don't have to be like, "Dude, we have to be in the car." Like, come on. If you don't get in your car, we don't do this. He gets to buckle himself in and work on all those fine motor practices. He gets to
Hmm.
do all these little things. And just in general, I get to be a part of this time period, which I know is so intensive, but it can also be so sweet and so magical, and you only get it once. And so that's just such a, whenever I feel like I am about ready to like break down in tears and cry, I'm like, this is this is what I wanted. And
Hmm.
I know that when it's gone, I am going to miss it. So it's really important to keep that perspective and that lens on everything and be like, this is such a blessing that I get to do this and provide that flexibility and that start for my children.
Yeah.
So
You seem
yeah.
to be an incredible mom, I have to say. From what little I've seen. I mean, I'm just amazed that you're
Thank
talking
you.
with us so early in your day when you've got kids who are stirring and waking up and you're about to give birth to a third, which we wish you
Yeah,
all the luck with that. Is there
thank
anything
you.
you want to share that we didn't touch on before we wrap up today?
Well, that's also another thing.
Yeah.
For anybody that is staying home, it's really hard, and it's easier right now because I'm pregnant. I swear, one of the cruelest but most interesting things about our body is that they do tend to like prepare us in weird ways.
Yeah.
And anybody who might be listening to this that is currently pregnant and wondering why they wake up almost every single hour overnight, that is just your body's wonderful way of
Mm,
getting you ready for the next couple of months of your life.
good point.
But as much as you can, learn to go with that and wake up early and provide yourself with a little time before everybody else wakes up. It
Yeah.
makes your life so much smoother. It's so hard for me, so hard. I'd love to just, go back and curl up into bed. But if you can greet the day, you're in your own choosing and not
Yeah.
wake up to like managing a fire and doing this and doing that. It really sets you up. And it is also when I can actually do things that people assume that I spend most of my day doing, like laundry or making food or doing all the things that are aspects of a stay-at-home mom that you just think like you must have the time for this.
Yeah.
I don't. I literally do not have time for anything that doesn't involve the specific needs of my child. So I'm going to speak a little to being in this chaotic stage of my life and still trying to find pockets of time that speak to my adventurous nature or who I was before and that
Hmm.
whole idea of like not losing yourself. But I will first preface it with everything is stated that once again, this is that time of my life where it's okay to lose myself. It's
Mm.
okay to realize that like motherhood is who I am right now, and it won't always be like that. But I am in that time. But anywho, anytime that I get to share nature with my kids, and it can be very simple. It could be like going out in the backyard and finding a caterpillar and being like, oh my God, I'm in awe of this caterpillar. Uh, do you want to come and look at how fuzzy it is with me? Or like, let's talk about it. Let's talk about, its colors, its shape, how it moves, or let's just even be quiet and watch it for a bit, and watch what it does little moments like that, but like getting memberships and going to the arboretum or the zoo really take a little bit of mental load off of me. It's something the kids look forward to. I look forward to it. So every day we kind of have a structure where we wake up and, we have breakfast. We do all the normal morning things. Hopefully we get in like a little learning activity too. If we don't, we don't. But then we're out of the house and we're doing something because kids are just so much easier to manage outside of their home environment. And then when I get them outside of the house too, they're destroying the rest of my house. So that's less work that I have to do upon coming back. So that's a very important part of our day is just getting out of the door, getting to some kind of adventure and being able to like fill our cups. And that's something cool about being a stay-at-home mom is I get to decide whose cup we're kind of filling,
Mm.
and why we're filling that cup. So if it's one of those days where I can tell that we're all really stressed out and taxed out, I can be like, we're going to the arboretum. We are having a very loose day, and we're just going to. If the trains are running, we're looking at the trains. If like the fountains are going, we're playing in a fountain. We're just enjoying being in nature, being together, and taking it slow. And if it's one of those days where I need a break, hopefully there's something like a music class or a library where somebody else is doing the instruction and I'm just the lap to sit upon.
Hmm.
And, if it's one of those days where, like, I had a couple of miscarriages in between my first and my second, and there's nothing that messes with your mind more than your hormones. I used to be a person that didn't believe in like, oh,
Didn't believe in
she's
hormones.
PMSing. Yeah.
I get it.
There's nothing that made me reconsider that more than my experience of going through back to back miscarriages. Just what that does to your hormonal state.
Mm.
You're not the same person. And I one day took my son to a lavender farm that was right by a lake. And so I blew up the kayak and put him in a little life vest. And I went kayaking and we saw an egret and, just some awesome cool things, or maybe it was a heron. I'm not sure. It was a cool
Big
bird.
bird, cool
It
bird.
caught a fish. We got to see that together. And so I'm not naive. I carried a whole bunch of stuff in my backpack. I was the worst backpacker, carried a bunch of heavy things that I shouldn't have carried, sometimes even carried rocks. People would make fun of me. I don't think that I can backpack with two children.
Fair.
uh, because you are not only carrying everything they need, but you're also carrying them. And that's a lot for a person. There's so many wonderful life lessons that I learned from backpacking. Um, but you need to know when it's too much to carry. And
Yeah.
that's too much to carry for me. Especially also now being pregnant and expecting a third. So
Yeah.
we can't do the kind of grandiose things that I would love to be doing, or I see other moms managing, and that's amazing that they can manage them. I can't.
Yeah.
I know that. I know that it would just be for a picture and we would all be miserable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we keep things a little bit less, but we can still find that like nature component, and do things that are adventurous. And when I have my partner with me, I can be even more adventurous because he can shoulder some of the weight.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, that's kind of the flexibility and the filling your cup aspect of
Yeah.
it. And like just trying to get your kids involved in things that you really like too. Like hopefully soon. And this is a very hopeful thing because I've tried it before and it doesn't always work like I want, but I'd love to be able to like schedule in a little bit of yoga time for myself and maybe invite the kids not to join, hope that they don't destroy things while I'm trying to get a little bit of exercise for myself. But that's also where I rely then on strapping them into a stroller and,
Mm.
going for a long walk and hoping that they fall asleep so that I can continuously walk. And I live in an area, which I'm very lucky, that has a lot of like carriage paths that make
Mm-hmm.
being in nature accessible, even if you're taking like a huge double jogging stroller,
Yeah. Yeah.
So like little things like that really do a lot to fill my cup. And luckily, because I stay at home, my kids are flexible and they will fall asleep in a stroller
Yeah.
for a couple of hours or in the car, and then I transfer them. Those types of patterns don't necessarily work too well when you have a daycare structure because your
Yeah.
kid knows that they go to sleep at this time, and if you miss that window, it's done for you. So
Totally.
that's kind of really nice and beneficial.
I maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't, Katie, but I love what you shared about learning how much you can carry. And I think there's a great metaphor there, right? That applies to both
Yeah.
this decision. And for some, obviously, there's a privilege and ability to be able to do this, but to be a stay-at-home mom, is that something you can carry? Like what is the experience of motherhood you're able to manage? And then within it as well, for you recognizing that getting this time outside, going on these adventures, although they may not be as grandiose as doing the Appalachian Trail, maybe someday when the kids get older.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We'll touch base in 15 years or so.
We have plans.
Do you? Okay. Okay. That'll be an awesome other conversation. But I mean, you sound like you're not only making it work, but that you're like providing like a beautiful garden, if you will, in which your kids can bloom, which is really inspiring and amazing to see. So, yeah.
All things are possible with love and patience.
Yeah.
But the one other hiking metaphor that I
Yeah.
want to bring to the closing is
Please.
uh, hikers love to talk about type 2 fun,
Yep.
the type of fun that is horrible while you're going through it, and looking back upon it, that it will be one of the most treasured things that you have done. And a whole lot of early parenting is that type 2 fun. And if you
Yeah.
find yourself any kind of partner or support network. I don't want to assume that it's a partner too,
Mm-hmm.
because you can have a child with just a really good support system. Um, but if you can find yourself one of those that appreciates the type 2 fun
Yeah.
and you can laugh your way through it in some moments, that's super necessary. But I'm all about that type 2 fun.
Yeah, I get it. And I've heard this parallel drawn before. It's a great analogy. So yeah, for those who aren't familiar with or maybe don't enjoy type 2 fun, you might surprise yourself, but it's definitely got some parallels to parenting. And of course, as a child-free person, also a fellow hiker, love my type 2 fun.
Yeah,
Sort of figuring
there
out
are
what
other ways
that,
of getting it.
yeah, totally, 100%. So thank you so much, Katie, for coming on
Thank
and for
you,
sharing so
Keltie.
openly with us. And is there anything else we need to know about you or where to find you or anything like that? No?
Um,
Busy with the kids.
Hopefully you can't find me.
I love that. I love that. If you really absolutely must connect with Katie, you can
Yeah.
just ping me a message.
Yeah. I would give you my Instagram, but it was way more interesting a few years back.
Oh,
You'll find nothing on there now.
yeah, fair, fair. You're busy. All right. Well, thank you so much for
All right.
coming on.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye. Thank you for joining us today for another episode of the Kids or Child Free podcast. Now, before you leave, I want to ask you to subscribe to the YouTube channel because lo and behold, we have a YouTube channel. I've failed to tell most of you that this even exists. Now, you can not only find all episodes of the podcast on our YouTube channel, but you can also find short form videos. We've got them categorized based on the types of conversations I'm having, whether they're with parents, whether they're about being child free. We've got different tips on how you can navigate this kids or child free decision. So lots of good stuff there. Go check it out. Our YouTube channel is Kids or Child Free. I will have it linked in the show notes of today's episode, so you've got that handy. Otherwise, you can give it a search. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes or videos that we share on there. All right, that is all from me. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.